Hello and welcome to IBTimes TV. I'm Leanna Brinder, Business Editor for the International Business Times. Joining me now from Business for Scotland is Gordon Macintyre-Kemp. So hi, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Well, exciting time, Scottish referendum in a day. So tell us, what are the main reasons for businesses under Business for Scotland for voting for independence?
Well, essentially we believe that a Parliament in Scotland that has Scotland's needs first can actually come up with bespoke policies for Scotland, bespoke business policies, bespoke economic policies. We think that decisions made in Scotland by a government that is elected by the people of Scotland, with Scotland putting Scotland's needs first, is mathematically certain to be better at making decisions that affect Scotland positively than a distant, disinterested and frankly dysfunctional Westminster Parliament.
On the other side, the businesses that are looking to vote no have said that they're concerned over the currency, on cross-border trade and so forth. What would your response be to those concerns, and do you think the answers are already out there but are just not being seen?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of issues there. First of all, we have in Scotland in particular a media that is only really presenting one side of the argument, and that does mean that a lot of undecided voters, and I think in businesses our research shows that there's actually a much larger section of business people are undecided, and therefore they don't get all of the information from both sides. What I would say though is that over 3,000 businesses have now joined Business for Scotland. We're the single largest business campaigning group by a country mile. We've published lists of leading business people right down to SMEs who support independence, and every one of those believes that we can actually, with the powers of independence, that we can create a better economy, a better environment to do business, that we can prosper, trade internationally and have a better brand for Scotland. Whereas with the other side of the argument, we're being offered a few powers, a few small powers. In fact, the biggest argument is there'll be a timetable which cannot be guaranteed for a bunch of powers that can't be guaranteed. So we're being asked to accept a promise of some powers that don't include major job creating powers, that don't include any of the major powers that Scotland needs to drive its economy forward. So we're being asked to accept the crumbs from Westminster's table, where independence guarantees us access to the full menu.
On the yes vote side, there's gained a lot of support, especially over the last 6 weeks. In terms of businesses coming to you guys, how have you seen that develop, and what have their reasons been why that maybe they were previously voting no and now are voting yes?
Well, we've seen our membership jump about 500 in the last week alone, including some major business figures who've come out for independence. And what's happened is that a lot of people in business are actually busy running the businesses. They've got staff issues, they've got international business and exporting issues to deal with. They're trying to grow their businesses, and then in the background they're trying to make a decision. And so what they've done is they've got closer to the vote. Not just business people, but people right across Scotland have actually gone out and actually proactively looked, rather than just relying on the media. They've proactively looked for the evidence, and when you see the evidence for yes, it's compelling, and that's why there's been a big shift towards yes. I think there's been a bigger shift to yes than has actually been picked up in the polls yet. So people say it's too close to call. I'm very confident that there will be a yes vote, and that we can begin the journey towards creating a better country to live in, to work in, a fairer, more sustainable, greener, more equal society, which is essentially what we're all about here. It's about creating a better Scotland than the one we can have under the Union.
If Scotland doesn't become independent, what would you hope for and what would you push for in terms of helping the businesses under your group? Would you hope for another referendum, or would you look to push for more powers, devolved powers?
Well, I think that first of all, we're absolutely certain that there will be a yes vote. We've been campaigning for that for 2 years, and I've always predicted that there will be a significant vote for yes on the day itself, and I see no reason to change that. However, if there was a no vote, then I think that Business for Scotland, for example, was founded prior to the devolution referendum to campaign for devolution. This time round we looked at the facts and decided to vote to campaign for independence. If there was a no vote, then we would look to hold the Westminster parties to the promise of more powers, and in fact we think those more powers that are actually being offered are completely underwhelming. So we'll be pushing for more powers, but also we believe that there will be a yes vote, and that there's no need to worry about that, because what we're going to do is start the process on Friday of nation building. As an organisation, we'll be looking to put together the policies that we can advise any government of any party that runs an independent Scotland and say this is what the business community needs in order to thrive in an independent Scotland.
The latest poll showed that yes and no vote are virtually neck and neck, but there's this whole pool of people that are saying they're undecided, and we've only got a few more hours until people go to the vote. So what would your last message be before people go to the stations?
Oh, I think it's pretty simple. There's been a lot of arguments about numbers, etc., and I think eventually everybody's realised that Scotland can afford to be an independent nation. The question is whether it should be or not. And it all boils down to this. Is Parliament in Scotland elected by the people of Scotland that puts Scotland's needs first, that thinks about Scotland's economy, thinks about Scotland's healthcare, its welfare, and makes the right decisions for Scotland better than a Parliament in Westminster, which, because of the huge size of the population of London and the South East, has to represent their needs first, and their needs are radically different from Scotland's. So we're actually talking about ending a political union which has become imbalanced, about a political union that doesn't work anymore for Scotland. But we're going to maintain all the other unions that work, the social union, the trading union, or family unions. I was brought up in Hexham in Northumberland, and so there's no reason to throw out the relationships that work, but the political union has failed. Devolution was a sticking plaster, independence is the solution.
Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
And that was Gordon Macintyre-Kemp from Business for Scotland.